So, Diane, let's bring you back on screen. And, we're into this terrible subject of trans.
Fortunately, Brian, I think it's important to look at what's going on in Scotland in particular, just to say that the CAS review specifically was written for NHS England, or commissioned through NHS England by Dr. Galson Cass. So I want to look separately at Scotland. So the Mail reported last week that just in the past year, there's been more than 350 children as young as 7 referred to the Sandyford Clinic, which is the gender transitioning clinic in Glasgow. I would say, I guess as well, a little bit of good news, but still not great, that following the CAS review, the NHS Scotland has considered that it will only offer gender transitioning services to children with the referral of a clinician, so that I think essentially children or parents can't refer the children to the clinics, which isn't great, but I guess it's something. The Right Decision Service, which is part of NHS Scotland and supported by the Scottish Government, posted this very recently. This is a Standard 10 gender identity services for young people. So there's a whole document that is separate in Scotland that doesn't affect England or Wales or Northern Ireland around gender identity services for young people. And the Right Decision Service is a source of digital tools that enable people to make safe decisions quickly and on the go. So we've got to make our decisions quickly and with the use of digital tools. I'm sure Debbie Evans would have some things to say about that. I want to also highlight the work here of Kate Deeming, who is on Twitter as Sunrise Dances, who's a colleague of mine who also is on the Scottish Union for Education Board. And she's doing some great work leading parents and concerned parents around these issues. And so she's got some tweets up about books related to transgenderism and so on. So we've been working together on this project with me as a librarian and her as a concerned parent of a child in the schools in Scotland around books, and basically saying there's no age rating on content. And so we had some Twitter discussion about that over the weekend. So some books that she highlighted and things that I found myself, I just want to ask some questions using these books. Queer: A Graphic History is a graphic novel. It's throughout Scottish schools. You can find it in school libraries. And if we look down there at the bottom, there's a little, at the bottom, it mentions things like trans species and different things that we want to look at: trans species, transgenderism, trans in general. At the bottom, it's probably a bit hard to see, but it is there. One of the books that I found as well when I was looking over the weekend, and I got it through Amazon, the Kindle Unlimited service that I have. Luckily, I didn't have to pay any extra to see this bit of a picture book, which is called The Boy Who Wanted to Be a Deer. It is a picture book recommended by the publisher for children ages 5 to 12. And if we read the story, we see that the boy had questions about who he was. And if we go, I've got a couple of screenshots from the following pages on the next slide there, where we can see at first he talked about being a boy and he thought he was a deer and he was bullied and kids were mean to him. So then he went back to being a human being and he felt better because he was no longer bullied, but he still didn't feel like himself. And so by the time he grew up to be a man, he was no longer afraid to be a deer. And then we see him transitioning back into being a deer. And the book kind of concludes with him being happy and wonderful and excited that he can now be who he really is. And he no longer cared when people made fun of him. So we're seeing this trans species agenda, which is it's just as bad or worse as the transgender agenda. Now we're telling children that they can be other species. And we saw this last week in Scotland, and this was confirmed by the council. This was not a myth. There's been a lot of myths going around. Oh, it's not true that kids are identifying as cats and bringing litter trays into school. Well, this one was confirmed by the council. A secondary school pupil in Scotland has been allowed to identify as a wolf. And we now see what we are calling, instead of not only gender dysphoria, we have species dysphoria. And they interviewed a psychologist. If you go further into this Mail article, the psychologist said that, of course, there is no such thing as species dysphoria. The council said that they follow the Scottish Government guidelines, which is called Getting It Right for Every Child, which is part of the guidance that's, again, separate in the Scottish Government. And they use as the basis for a lot of this the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, which says that a child has the right to be an individual just the same way everyone else does. And therefore, we can't potentially even try to direct them otherwise. If they think that they're going to be a deer or a wolf or something else, then that's their right to do so. And we should support them and be supportive of what they want to do. We see a lot of this on TikTok. There are groups on TikTok with people called Therians, where people who identify as different species and they wear masks to make themselves look like they are something other than a human being. They don't necessarily believe that they can change physically, but that in their minds they are actually at least part or whole a deer or a wolf or a dog or a cat or whatever. So I have a short clip here. It's a bit funny and dark at the same time. This is a media personality based in Texas. His name is Stein. And this was something that he did back in 2022, or part of what he did back in 2022 at the Plano, Texas City Council meeting, which actually is the same town where I went to high school.
Listen to the new mask policy at Bowman Middle School. So I go in there and I put on my typical mask, and they said, oh, that mask is inappropriate. It's too distracting. Let me ask you this, Mayor Munz, please explain to me how this mask at all is distracting when I'm literally trying to protect these kids from COVID, okay? And they're trying to say that this mask is inappropriate. Sorry, my husband, he's gonna get so mad if I'm speaking in my human voice. He's gonna make me sit in the kennel all week. But they're trying to say that this mask is inappropriate for students. I'm trying to protect myself from COVID. I got 5 vaccines, but everybody knows a vaccine is not enough, all right? So I'm out here, I'm barking every day. And these students, I'm trying to bark at these students, I'm trying to teach them something. I want them to learn. I want them to know that we live in a world of inclusivity and we need to be more inclusive.
So it's funny and dark at the same time. It's a whole 5-minute video. If you want to see the entire thing, the whole link will be in the show notes. But I didn't really know exactly how to demonstrate exactly what this community of Therians or Furries, which are these people that identify as something else, that's how they're describing their identity. And you can see videos of it in real life. But I thought we should add a bit of humor to it to make it a bit less dark. Brian.
Yeah, Diane, we can laugh at it, but this is a calculated madness which is being thrust on society. It's particularly targeting children because, of course, if they can destroy the minds of children, then the adult is gone. The emerging adult is already